gigantic guns that shocked history. Since the invention of gunpowder, firearms have undergone countless innovations, evolving from primitive weapons into compact, efficient tools of modern warfare. Over time, firearm development has trended toward making guns lighter, smaller, and more user-friendly. However, history doesn't always follow a straight line. In certain eras, people deliberately built colossal guns, not for convenience, but for raw, overwhelming power designed for a very specific purpose. Some of these massive weapons weren't even created for war, but instead for hunting. One of the most extraordinary examples is the Punt Gun, a monster of a firearm that once caused such environmental devastation that conservationists were forced to step in. The Punt Gun, the bird hunting cannon that once terrorized the skies. In the 19th century, across the wetlands and large lakes of Europe and North America, an unusual weapon emerged, the Punt Gun. While ordinary shotguns were already effective at taking down birds in flight by scattering small pellets, the Punt Gun took this concept to the extreme. It was essentially a fusion of a shotgun and a cannon, packing enough firepower to wipe out an entire flock of birds with a single blast. The gun got its name from how it was used, mounted to the front of a small, flat-bottomed boat known as a punt. There was no standardized size for these weapons, but they could easily reach over 10 feet, 3 meters in length, weigh more than 200 pounds, over 90 kilograms, and feature a barrel up to 2 inches, 5 centimeters in diameter. A single shot could fire over a pound, 0.5 kilograms of lead shot, generating so much recoil that the boat could physically jolt backwards several feet across the water. To put that into perspective, a 12-gauge shotgun, already considered a powerful firearm, has a barrel diameter of less than 3/4 inch and fires just about 1 ounce, 28 grams of shot per shell. Compared to that, the Punt Gun was a true behemoth. Most punt guns were muzzle loaders, meaning they were manually reloaded from the front and fired one shot at a time. Hunters would carefully paddle their punts into areas where large numbers of waterfowl, such as wild ducks and geese, gathered. Silence was critical. Any noise could send the birds scattering. Once the flock was dense enough, the hunter would fire, sometimes bringing down dozens, even hundreds of birds in a single volley. When multiple punt boats coordinated their shots, the carnage could be even more devastating. Entire flocks could be decimated in mere seconds. After each hunt, the fallen birds would be collected and sold as food to restaurants, markets, and urban families. This form of hunting wasn't just a sport, it was big business, generating substantial income for hunters and turning wildfowl hunting into a commercial industry. Due to the sheer effectiveness of the Punt Gun and the unregulated hunting practices that accompanied it, migratory bird populations began to decline sharply by the late 1800s. Species such as wild ducks and geese were being pushed toward extinction. Conservationists across Europe and America began sounding the alarm, and their efforts gave rise to the earliest wildlife protection movements. To combat the crisis, many U.S. states and federal authorities passed strict regulations. These laws banned commercial bird hunting, set limits on how many birds could be harvested in a season, and outlawed the use of punt guns. These measures allowed wild bird populations to slowly recover in the following decades. Although banned from hunting, punt guns were not made illegal to own. In the United States, they are still legally permitted for private ownership, often displayed in museums or kept by collectors as rare historical artifacts. Among antique weapons enthusiasts, the punt gun is seen as a bizarre yet fascinating relic from a time when humans viewed nature as boundless and brute force as a badge of pride. Oversized gun models, a unique U.S. Army training method during World War II. When World War II broke out, the U.S. military faced an unprecedented challenge. A rapid influx of young men enlisting in the armed forces, the vast majority of whom had never handled a firearm. To train these recruits quickly yet effectively, the U.S. Department of Defense had to think outside the box, especially when it came to teaching new soldiers the mechanics, handling, and operation of real weapons they would soon use in combat. Beyond traditional classroom-style instruction using training films, illustrated posters, and manuals, the military implemented a highly hands-on and visual approach. Oversized mock-up weapons used for procedural training. These special training aids were scaled-up replicas, often twice the size of standard-issue infantry weapons, purpose-built to enhance learning. Although they weren't capable of firing, they featured accurate internal components, allowing trainees to explore the inner workings of the real firearms in a tactile way. The models were usually made from hollow aluminum, making them both lightweight and sturdy, easy for recruits to hold, rotate, and manipulate. Because each part, such as the trigger, bolt mechanism, and magazine feed, was faithfully represented. Soldiers could easily visualize and memorize how real firearms operated. Instead of passively reading diagrams, recruits could touch, disassemble, and practice with oversized models, helping them develop faster muscle memory and a stronger understanding of the weapon's mechanics. The first widely used oversized model was Device 3F3, a scaled-up version of the Browning M1918A2 automatic rifle, one of the U.S. Army's primary infantry weapons at the time. Following its success, the program expanded to include other large-scale mock-ups, such as M21, a giant version of the semi-automatic M1 carbine, M22, an oversized replica of the Browning M1919 machine gun, M24, a large-scale model of the M1 Garand, complete with plastic dummy rounds and an oversized clip, used to practice realistic loading and operation techniques. These training tools remained in service well into the 1950s, helping generations of soldiers become familiar with their weapons before live-fire training. Eventually, however, they were phased out as new weapons like the M14, M16 assault rifles, and the M60 machine gun were introduced. Although a few enlarged models were created for these modern firearms, their use was far more limited, and the oversized gun method slowly faded from mainstream military training. After being retired from official use, many of these giant mock weapons weren't discarded. Instead, they were donated to military museums or appeared in surplus stores, where they later found homes in private collections. Today, they are cherished by military historians and weapon enthusiasts, valued not only for their size and novelty, but also as tangible remnants of an extraordinary era in American military history. More than just training tools, these oversized models serve as living artifacts of a time when the U.S. needed to rapidly transform millions of young civilians into capable soldiers, and found an innovative, practical, and effective way to do it. Tank-busting rifles, massive weapons carried on soldiers' shoulders. When World War I erupted, the world witnessed the arrival of a brand new kind of battlefield weapon, the tank. These armored beasts quickly became the infantry's worst nightmare, rolling over trenches, crushing obstacles, and proving nearly invulnerable to standard rifle fire. The emergence of tanks forced participating nations to find a way to counter this threat. From that urgent need, a new category of weaponry was born: anti-tank rifles, designed specifically to give foot soldiers a fighting chance against armored vehicles they were previously powerless against. Once it became clear that infantry had little defense against tanks, several major nations began developing their own versions of anti-tank rifles. These weapons looked nothing like regular rifles. They were far larger in size and specifically built to fire armor-piercing rounds. Some notable examples include Boy's .55 caliber, a British-made weapon infamous for its deafening blast and brutal recoil. Type 97 Kinanashiki-Ju, Japan's standard-issue anti-tank rifle during World War II. Panzerbuchs 39, Germany's primary anti-armor weapon in the early stages of the war. Despite their varying designs, these rifles shared key traits. They were huge, heavy, and incredibly destructive. Weights ranged from around 35 pounds, 16 kilograms, for portable models to over 500 pounds, 227 kilograms, for weapons like the Mauser 2.8 centimeters SB's B41, which was nearly the size of a light artillery piece. Most barrels were over 1.2 meters, 4 feet, long, significantly longer than the average infantry rifle. The ammunition was equally formidable. A .50 caliber, 12.7 millimeters round was considered the baseline, and many models used even larger, heavier projectiles, some longer than a pencil. These bullets traveled with immense velocity and energy, capable of punching through early tank armor. As expected, the recoil was brutal. Each shot could knock a soldier back half a step, jarring their shoulder. That's why these weapons were rarely operated alone. Anti-tank rifles were typically crew-served, with one soldier acting as the gunner while an assistant carried ammunition and extra gear. While not always easy to handle, these rifles proved effective during the early years of World War II, especially in urban warfare or defensive lines. Soviet rifles like the PTRD-41 and PTRS-41 were notorious for wreaking havoc on German armored units. However, as the war progressed, tanks were upgraded with thicker, reinforced armor. Eventually, even the most powerful anti-tank rifles couldn't penetrate the new plating. Their original purpose faded, and they were gradually replaced by dedicated anti-tank guns and shoulder-fired rockets. But the anti-tank rifle didn't disappear entirely, it evolved. These heavy weapons found new life as anti-material rifles, AMRs, a modern class of firearms that no longer targeted tanks but focused on softer targets, military trucks, lightly armored vehicles, radar installations, parked aircraft, ammo depots, and more. Thanks to their large caliber, long-range accuracy, and tactical versatility, AMRs became valuable tools in modern warfare, providing powerful support without the bulk of artillery. One of the most famous examples is the Barrett M82, a semi-automatic .50 caliber rifle developed in the US. It's capable of disabling engines, destroying equipment, and eliminating threats at ranges of up to several thousand meters. From the crude, shoulder-mounted tank busters of the trenches to the precision-engineered rifles used to destroy equipment from afar, the journey of the anti-tank rifle is a powerful testament to the ongoing adaptation of military technology. While their original mission may have changed, their spirit and effectiveness endure in a new form, with new missions and on entirely different battlefields. The Jaile musket, devastating firepower from the mountains of Central Asia. Oversized firearms are not a product of the modern era. In fact, centuries ago, in the rugged mountainous regions of Central Asia, there existed a powerful long-range weapon that fired heavy rounds with deadly force. The Jaile musket, a symbol not only of warfare but also of traditional gunsmithing craftsmanship. Widely used by tribal warriors, especially in areas like Afghanistan, the Jaile was a type of matchlock or flintlock musket. Its most distinctive feature was its deeply curved stock, making it easily recognizable among other firearms of the time. Unlike the mass-produced European muskets of the 18th and 19th centuries, the Jaile musket was entirely handcrafted by skilled local blacksmiths. Each weapon was a unique creation, reflecting the personal style and expertise of its maker. Many of them were elaborately decorated with silver, copper, gemstones, or intricate engravings, transforming the gun into a symbol of status rather than just a tool of war. While the exact dimensions varied by maker, most Jaile muskets featured exceptionally long barrels and extended frames, far exceeding the length of typical muskets from the same era. This design allowed for greater accuracy and range, easily surpassing contemporaries such as the British Brown Bess. Some historical sources claim the Jaile could reach targets up to 500 meters away, although a more realistic effective range was around 250 meters, still significantly farther than most European muskets, which were typically accurate under 150 meters. Because of its long and heavy build, the Jaile was often used with a barrel rest, or simply propped on natural rock formations. In the steep, mountainous terrain of Afghanistan, local warriors would secure elevated positions and fire downward at approaching enemies, a tactic that was not only strategically effective but also took full advantage of the weapon's long-range capabilities. The musket fired large lead balls, often between .50 and .75 caliber, more than enough to inflict serious damage on both soldiers and horses in combat. Weighing between 12 to 14 pounds, 5.5 to 6.5 kilograms, the Jaile was significantly heavier than European counterparts. However, this added weight helped absorb recoil, stabilizing the weapon and improving accuracy at long distances. One of the most striking demonstrations of the Jaile musket's fearsome effectiveness came during the 1842 retreat from Kabul, part of the First Anglo-Afghan War. As a British force of over 16,000 soldiers, support staff, and camp followers withdrew from the Afghan capital, they were ambushed in the mountain passes by local fighters armed with Jaile muskets. Using their superior positioning and overwhelming firepower, the Afghan warriors launched relentless attacks, decimating the column. In the end, only one British survivor, Assistant Surgeon William Britton, reached the safety of Jalalabad after a grueling 90-mile, 145 kilometers journey. When asked by the garrison, "Where is the army?" he could only reply in despair, "I am the army." Throughout the long history of firearms, many weapons are remembered for their reliability, versatility, or battlefield dominance. The Jaile musket, however, stands out for its impressive size, artisanal craftsmanship, and pivotal role in defining moments of military history. Today, though no longer used in combat, The Jaile musket is preserved in museums or kept in private collections by enthusiasts of traditional weaponry. It remains a living relic of Central Asia's martial heritage, forged in a land shaped by harsh terrain and the warrior spirit, and one of the most formidable muskets ever to exist. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on more fascinating stories like this.